Umamusume Pretty Derby Season 2 is the reason a lot of people fell in love with this anime franchise. Cinderella Grey is probably the other reason people fell in love with this anime franchise, but I digress. I think Season 2 gets remembered as a beautiful comeback story, but the more I rewatch it, the more I think it's about learning how to lose, and what it takes to actually want something again after losing breaks you. So today, we're ranking every episode of Season 2 from start to finish. There's a few S tiers that hit harder than you'd expect an anime about horse girls to hit, but there's also an F tier that left me quite disappointed. Alright, let's get into it. Starting at the bottom, Episode 1. No way, I'm just kidding. Seriously though, this episode is a masterclass in foreshadowing. And I don't just mean that in a subtle blink and you'll miss it kind of way. I mean that it'll make you quietly come to your own conclusion about what's happening and then makes you feel completely helpless to the hard realization. But before we get there, if you came from Season 1 expecting more of the same warm, fuzzy, feel-good vibe, Season 2 Episode 1 has something to say about that. It opens with a full-blown high-energy rock concert. No easing in, no transition, just Tokai Teo performing off the high of a hard-fought victory with the crowd going absolutely insane. And if we just ignore the actual concert for just a second, I love the statement that the scene makes without explicitly saying anything. It's like the show is telling you, the gloves are off and we are doing something different now. That alone got me so hyped for the season. The concert itself pulls no punches. The animation is insane, the choreography is fire, and the song itself is a complete banger. Unfortunately, the show doesn't let you enjoy it for too long because it does a quick camera pan on Taylor's leg. Just a quick jerk movement in the choreography, then a flash to Rudolph's face, and then her trainer. A look of shock as dread begins to set in, and then back to Tail, pushing through with a faint, forced smile like she's trying to convince you that everything is fine. By now, you registered what's happening, but the concert is already back in full swing. Just a camera pan, 2 quiet looks, and your stomach dropping. That's it, and it works perfectly. The episode closes on a sick end credit transition that just says Tokai Teo in giant Japanese kanji. The music continues to play, and the credits begin to roll. It was so clean, I got chills watching this. S tier. Episode 2 is the most underrated episode of the season, and I think a reason it gets slept on is because the episode that comes before it, and some real heavy-hitting stuff that comes after it, but we'll get there. What this episode does quietly is establish the entire emotional foundation that the rest of Season 2 is built on. The first half is doing a lot of work. Tail grinding through rehab, teammates showing up with gifts to support her, a genuinely funny moment where McQueen hooks her up with the Meijiro family doctor, and Tail absolutely loses it over getting a shot. The comedy works here because it lightens the tense mood, but it also makes Tail feel like a real person before the show decides to devastate you. And it does devastate you. The doctor tells you she won't make it for the Kitka show. The scene hits a lot harder than it should for this early in the season. The sad music, Tail looking completely lost, and then finding her trainer pulling an all-nighter to support her anyways, it's a quite gut-wrenching moment. The Kitka show sequence is where the episode really earns its place. Tail goes to watch the race she should have been running in. And as it unfolds, she imagines herself in it. Where she'd be, what she'd do, how she'd win. She breaks down crying, and we get a shift. The music changes. It's hopeful. She's cheering her heart out for the racers instead. Her original goal was the Triple Crown. That's gone now. So she builds a new one, become undefeated. That reframe is hope renewed, and a very much needed bright light and a rather dark opening to the season. This is a strong A. Episode 3 is where the season shifts into setup mode. And if you're the type of viewer who needs something to happen in every episode, like me, this one is going to test you a little. The main thing episode 3 is doing is building the Tenno Show Spring as an event worth caring about. We get Teo and McQueen selected for the URA awards. There's a press conference with the two stating their goals. Team Spica is getting recognized as a really outstanding team. It's moving the story forward, but it's just honestly not that interesting. It's asking you to care about the Tenno show before the rivalry between Teo and McQueen is fully developed. The saving grace is Team Canopus. They, and by they I mean Twin Turbo, challenged Spica by shooting an arrow on their door with a letter attached that says "Drown with Spica," except it's spelled wrong, which actually makes it funnier. The show is clearly not taking this team seriously, which is a little bit unfortunate because Mambo is on this team and I know there are a lot of Mambo fans out there.
Mambo, Mambo, Omatsuri, Mambo.
Right down to the goofy little music that plays every time they're on screen.
はい、ツインターボさん、1着になる。それはそうだけど、他には2着にならない。3着はいいってこと？
It's a running joke that provides a much needed comedic relief, especially when the season decides to touch on its more emotionally devastating moments. Episode 3 is doing its job. It's just not doing anything more than that. C tier. I want to be very clear about something before we get into episode 4. I don't throw F tiers around lightly. F isn't this episode is boring. F is this episode failed at what it was trying to do. Keep that in mind. Episode 4 is the most skippable episode of the season. Teo dominates the Osaka High, a necessary precursor to the Tenno show, but honestly, the race just feels weirdly flat. And to be clear, a race doesn't need tension to be good. Sometimes the fun is not wondering who's going to win, but watching someone completely overwhelm the field. That can be hype too. The problem is that I never really felt Teo's dominance either. No aura, no threatening music, no moment where you look at the track and think, oh man, I would not want to be racing against her right now. We get another Canopus gag, but this time it doesn't land the same way. Twin Turbo tries to copy the Teo step, falls over, causes a chain reaction. Same joke, but some of the novelty had already worn off. And unlike episode 3, where the joke was cutting through some of the emotional heaviness from episode 2, the mood here is already pretty light. There's nothing for it to contrast against. We also have Majuro Palmer making a new best friend in Daitoku Helios. And honestly, it just takes up space. And I'm saying that as a Helios fan.
Way!
It's so unfleshed out that if you substituted Helios for basically any other character, the story probably wouldn't even change. Mihono Bourbon is introduced in this episode too, and unlike the Helios subplot, Bourbon is actually central to season 2's story. But introducing her here just adds to the feeling that this episode's attention is split in too many different directions. Her actual story doesn't really start until 2 episodes later when Rice Shower starts becoming the focus. And because of that, it feels less like a meaningful setup and more like the episode throwing another subplot onto the pile. And that's really the core problem here. This episode is supposed to be the final ramp up to the Tenno show, one of the season's first major emotional peaks, but instead, it feels weirdly scattered. None of the individual ideas are terrible on their own, but together, they make the episode feel unfocused at the exact moment the season should be narrowing in on Teo and McQueen. There are 2 moments that work. Teo's heartfelt talk with Rudolph, and McQueen's grandmother giving her the tortoise in the hair speech. Both are genuinely good, but 2 good scenes in an episode that's otherwise pulling in 5 different directions just isn't enough to save it. F tier. Episode 5 is the most emotionally manipulative episode of the season, but not in a good way. This is the Tenno show Spring, the showdown that episode 3 and 4 spent their entire runtime building towards. Teo versus McQueen, separate training regimens, press conferences, crowds going crazy. The show is doing everything it can to tell you that this race matters. But the problem is, I never really felt the rivalry. And I think that comes down to 2 things. First, their teammates on Spica. There's just naturally less tension when the 2 characters racing still feel on the same side. I actually think season 3 understood this really well by keeping Kita-san and Diamond on separate teams. That rivalry felt way more dangerous when they actually raced.
いいレースにしようね。正々堂々勝負しよう。私が勝つよ。北さんブラック。
But more importantly, Teo and McQueen still admire each other more than they challenge each other at this point in the story. It feels less like 2 competitors desperately trying to surpass one another, and more like 2 friends having a really respectful race, which is fine emotionally, but it makes the actual competition harder to get invested in. And because the rivalry isn't carrying the tension naturally, the episode starts trying to manufacture it instead. The 2 guys bring up how the longer distance favors McQueen. Okay, so Teo is at a disadvantage, but then McQueen chips her horseshoe before the race. A bad omen. The last time this happened, the racer lost. So now is McQueen at a disadvantage too? The episode keeps trying to artificially rebalance the scales instead of letting the emotional stakes speak for themselves. And then the race actually starts, and honestly, I was never on the edge of my seat for this one. Now, to be fair, this was a rewatch. I already knew the result, but that's not really an excuse either because this franchise has plenty of races where knowing the outcome genuinely doesn't matter. The direction, the music, the emotion, they still pull you in anyways. This just wasn't one of those races for me. Teo starts her spurt, McQueen holds the lead, and at no point did I genuinely feel like the momentum of the race was shifting. It's a convincing defeat, sure, but maybe a little too convincing. The best part of the episode honestly comes after the race. Teo congratulating McQueen despite being devastated is genuinely a really strong character moment. But one good emotional beat at the end of the finish line doesn't fully save a race that never made me forget I was watching it. I gotta say, the race fit was fire though. D tier. Episode 6 is the season's reset button, and I mean that in the most neutral way possible. After the Tenno show, Teo is re-injured, McQueen is recovering, and the season needs to regroup. So that's exactly what this episode does. Teo is visibly lost, crossing out her undefeated goal on her whiteboard, zoning out in class, going through the motions of training without really being there. The existential crisis is earned, and it shows. The trainer has his own quiet moment of self-doubt, questioning whether he can get Teo through this again. It's a small scene, but an important one. It humanizes him, rather than keeping him in a pure support role. Then there's the leader arc, and I actually love this arc. Teo gets assigned the leader role for her team while she recovers, complete with a goofy sash that she's visibly embarrassed about. It's charming, I enjoyed it. Watching her rediscover her own reasons for racing through her teammates is exactly the kind of quiet character work this episode needed. But the ending is what truly hits. Teo finds McQueen training alone in secret, grinding specifically to rematch her on more fair terms. On Teo's terms, because the Tenno show was always McQueen's distance. This one scene reframes the whole loss. It shows that McQueen wasn't satisfied with her win. She wanted a real answer, and that reignites everything in Teo because now she's determined to give McQueen that answer. This was the first time I felt the rivalry between the two was actually real. B tier. Episode 7 is the best standalone episode of the season. And what I mean by that is, you can show this episode to anyone who's never seen a single frame of Umamusume, and they would feel something by the end of it. That's rare in a franchise this serialized. This episode belongs to Rice Shower, and the first thing it does, it makes you understand exactly why she's been struggling. People are openly upset that she ruined Bourbon's Triple Crown run. It's not subtle, it's loud, it's everywhere, and it's clearly weighing on her. The cinematography sells it in a way that the writing alone just never could. There's a scene where the camera slowly pulls back from Rice as she looks out to the crowd. Teo and Bourbon track her down to find out what's going on, and the way they go about it is genuinely hilarious. Bourbon tries to motivate Rice with the same tough love approach her master uses on her.
Rice. しのごの言わずに走りなさい
Teo's reaction is gold, and Rice runs away. So now, it's a chase, and the show leads into it completely. Teo gassing out because Rice is a stayer who can outlast her, Bourbon's scooter running out of batteries, Rice doing a full-on Naruto run through a crowd and hiding under a bench with their legs sticking out in plain sight, but still eluding Teo and Bourbon who are completely blind to the fact, all sell this comedic moment to great effect. It's genuinely funny, and it works because you just came from a really heavy scene. The comedy is decompression, not distraction. When they finally catch up, Bourbon tells Rice something simple. That Rice was always her hero, and Rice lets everything out. It's a little corny maybe, but hey, it's a conflict resolution and it works. The episode closes on a solo song sung by Rice Shower's VA. It's a beautiful song that carries the emotional weight of the whole episode. And over it, we get flashes of Rice as a kid, winning races with a huge smile on her face, pure joy before the world decided she was a villain. It recontextualizes everything. By the time it ends, you're not just rooting for her, you remember why she started. S tier. Episode 8 is the best directed episode of the season, and it earns that by doing something genuinely difficult. It takes a character you spent all of episode 7 feeling sorry for, and then makes you genuinely afraid of her. Right from the opening song, we get a new frame of Rice Shower looking down with a single cold, dark, visible eye and blue flames streaking out of them. Like, hello? Who is this and what have you done with my girl? She's almost unrecognizable with this menacing look on her face. It's bone-chilling, it's uncomfortable, and it makes you think maybe the world was right all along to decide she was a villain. Rice is locked in. We see her training camp, worn out shoes piled up, pictures of McQueen pinned on the wall. She's not just preparing, she's obsessing. And during training, she unlocks something. The zone. A full dark aura radiating off of her. Blue flames in her eyes. The very same menacing character we saw in the intro. What I love about this is that the very first zone in this franchise doesn't go to the protagonist. It doesn't go to the fan favorite. It goes to Rice Shower, who honestly probably is a lot of people's favorites by now. The show is telling you exactly what she is at this point. Something to be feared. The pre-race walkout is one of my favorite moments of the entire season. McQueen looks onto the shadows and out emerges Rice, engulfed in a dreadful aura who just walks past McQueen without saying a single word. Doesn't acknowledge her, doesn't even look at her. She just stares coldly ahead and she's gone. And McQueen, who's been unshakable all season, not even deterred by Teo, is visibly nervous getting into her gate. Something is affecting her and we all know what it is. The race itself is beautifully directed. McQueen gets her own aura, a light hopeful blue that builds you up just enough to believe that she has a chance. And then the music shifts. It's ominous. Rice's dark flames envelop her completely. Any hope you had for McQueen evaporated. Just like that. I got chills. Rice wins to complete silence. No applause. Just a crowd that didn't want this outcome. And then McQueen starts clapping. Slowly, others follow. It's a small gesture that says everything about McQueen's character without a single line of dialogue. Rice finds Bourbon and finally lets it all out. That winning still hurts when nobody wanted you to win. And Bourbon, in her blunt robotic way, tells her the uncomfortable truth. Winning means destroying someone else's dream. That's just what it is. Kinda like how this episode is just what it is. S tier. Episode 9 is hard carried by its final scene, and I mean that as a compliment. Teo is finally ready to race again. She's eager, she's motivated. The rematch with McQueen is on, and then she gets injured. Again. This time the doctor's face says everything before he even opens his mouth. A third fracture is serious. She may never run the same again, if even at all. What follows is one of the best acted moments of the season. Teo puts on a brave face for her trainer, reassuring him by telling him everything is going to be fine. Except while she's saying it, her hand is visibly shaking on his shoulder. She's performing composure for everyone else's sake while completely falling apart underneath. That's heavy. There's a moment with Twin Turbo 2 that's easy to miss. While everyone around Teo is visibly devastated, Turbo just quietly reaffirms that she believes Teo will get through this. No grand speech, just a genuine belief from a character the show has spent 8 episodes treating as a joke. And it's times like these where it's the blind optimist who's just a tad bit too goofy and completely ignores the gravity of any situation that is actually appreciated more. Teo goes out in her wheelchair and runs into some fans who unintentionally plant doubt, talking about her in past tense, implying her career is already over. And she just absorbs it, replaying every conversation in her head that all point to the same conclusion. And then the stopwatch scene. McQueen is training, Teo is timing her laps, and as we watch McQueen run, she imagines herself out there too, and being left behind. Desperately begging them not to go, she breaks down completely, the most devastated we've ever seen her in the entire season. This was a heavy scene. A tier. Episode 10 is the most emotionally manipulative episode of the season, but this time, I mean that in a good way. Teo is at rock bottom. She's taken the day off to try and shake herself out of it. Karaoke, shopping, treating herself, and for a moment it works, but not for long. All of it was just a distraction from what's really eating at her. We find a young Kita-san sitting alone at Trayson, waiting for presumably hours to give Teo this good luck charm she's been working hard at. And Teo? Well, she rejects it. Cold, flat out, it's ugly, and I almost wanted to hate Teo for it. But then you remember everything Teo is going through, so you let it slide. This time. Just don't let it happen again. Then Twin Turbo. She's trying her hardest to get Teo to come back. This is her rival. But this time, Teo lashes out. Who asked her to try? What does Turbo know about what Tail's going through? Turbo runs off crying. It's a hard watch. A character you hold dear to your heart slowly becoming the villain you're not sure you can defend anymore. But then the big screen lights up. Canopus has hijacked the show. Twin Turbo's race is playing. It's only a G2, but Rice Shower is in the race, by the way. And let's not forget this show spent 2 full episodes building her into something absolutely terrifying. And Turbo wins! The joke character, mind you. The one nobody took seriously. The one Tail couldn't even remember the name of. And that ignites a fire in Tail as she watches in complete awe and lets go of everything. She's been wanting to race this whole time, but every time she believed, she was met with heartbreak after heartbreak, and she was just too scared to want it again. The ending song is a new hopeful song that plays during Turbo's race, all the way to the end credits. It matches the vibe perfectly and leaves you with the feeling like your faith has been restored. S tier. Episode 11 is the Exhale episode, and that's both its purpose and its problem. After the emotional gut punch of episode 9 and the triumphant swing of episode 10, the season needs to let everyone breathe. So that's exactly what this episode does. Tail is back on the track, rusty, but just happy to be running again. And honestly, same. There are warm moments scattered throughout. Tail trying to spy on rival teams in a ridiculous incognito outfit that fools absolutely nobody. Nice nature opening up about never having won a race. A small vulnerability from a character who doesn't get enough screen time. Tail struggling to thank McQueen directly because the closer you are to someone, the harder it is to get sentimental. A relatable little truth the episode touches on. And then the charm. Tail is out of town and Kita-san spots her good luck charm, the one Tail coldly rejected an episode ago, hanging right there. Kita-san's face says everything. It's a small moment, but it lands cleanly. A quiet redemption that doesn't announce itself. Yeah, you're forgiven. The McQueen and Tail date is the episode's weakest stretch. And I think the reason it doesn't fully land for me is because episode 9 and 10 completely rip Tail apart emotionally, but episode 11 smooth things over so quickly that some of the tension just disappears. They spend the full day together, and admittedly they both need it at this point, but at the end of it, they both admit that they inspire one another. It's a little cliche for two characters whose relationship has said so much more through silence and stopwatches and heartbreak comebacks. The season needed a breath, but a breath is all that it is. C tier. Episode 12 is an important episode, but a flawed one. And the flaw is specific enough that I think it's worth mentioning. The episode opens with McQueen getting injured, and the show handles her response the same way it handled Tails. The denial, the pushing through, the emotional breakdown, the person who loves her most showing up to pull her back from the depths of despair. It's the same arc, and I understand why narratively, the roles are reversed now. Tail is the one offering strength instead of receiving it, and that's meaningful. But meaningful doesn't always mean it hits as hard the second time. What the episode does well is set up for what's coming. Biwa Hiyahide is introduced as the final boss. She sets the record at the Kikka show and shocks everyone in the room. You feel the threat immediately. Can Tail really do this? But no time to think about it because Tail is out the door to find McQueen. This time, it's Tail's turn to save her. This scene works even if the arc feels familiar. There's also the Hachimi moment. Tail strolling down the street singing Hachimi to herself. It's completely unserious, and the internet has never let go of it for good reason.
ハチミを舐めると足が速くなる
A small lighthearted breath before everything gets heavy again. McQueen's breaking down on the track, and honestly, at this point it feels like it's getting a little bit played out, just because of how many times we've seen this already with Tail up until this point. But the thing that saves this episode is the ending. It's the normal ending song, except McQueen's VA opens it where Tail usually does. Their parts are completely swapped. It's the show literalizing the role reversal through the music. It was beautiful, elegant, a lot of fluff. The emotional moments kind of felt rehashed, but that ending was genuinely a chef's kiss. Also, Hachimi. B tier. Episode 13 is the best payoff of the season, bar none. 13 episodes of injuries, setbacks, doubt, heartbreak, and renewed hope. All of it lands here. And before the race even starts, we get the Teo step, her signature move, and it's actually based on the real Tokai Teo. There are a lot of things to unpack going into this race, namely the doubt. It's everywhere, in the crowd, in the announcers, and honestly, even in you. This is Teo's first race in a whole year, and her last result was 13th place. She's the underdog, and the show isn't afraid to hide it.
本番のレース、やっぱり全然違う。
Meanwhile, McQueen can't even bring herself to be there. A part of her doesn't believe in the miracle. She's in the same camp as everyone else, that Teo can't pull it off. But then she remembers Teo asking her to come watch her final race. So she works up the resolve to go, because this comeback isn't just Teo's. Hayahide makes her move. The music turns ominous. It feels over. For a moment, the race looks exactly how everyone expected it to. Like the comeback was never really possible. And then the music cuts. McQueen pushes to the crowd and looks up. She's shocked at what she sees. Because Teo is right on Hayahide's tail. The announcer catches it. Even the narration doesn't trust what it's seeing. And that disbelief mirrors exactly what you're feeling in that moment. And then Teo, her lungs are burning, her legs are gone. She doesn't care. Just raw desperation from a girl who's been through everything this season has had to throw at her. And she runs. I've always been the type to root for the underdog, and in that moment, I was screaming for her. She crosses the finish line, and when she does, it's not just relief, it's release. Everybody dogpiles onto her, standing ovation, and McQueen, who couldn't even bring herself to be there, is standing in that arena crying. She made it, and so did Teo. The ending concert is beautiful. It's the opening song, but the new added choreography is genuinely jaw-dropping. The best part? The camera finds a young Kita-san in the crowd, watching, dreaming. It doesn't demand your attention, it trusts you to notice. Just a seed, planted and gone. The perfect end to a masterful season. You knew it, I knew it, S tier. My number one pick for the best episode in season 2. Well, there you have it, my full ranking of all the episodes of season 2. Season 2 will always have a special place in my heart. It's the perfect underdog comeback story with beautiful lessons on learning how to lose and overcoming the unexpected. If you're new here, the channel is called Kita-san White for a reason. If you couldn't already tell, I'm a little obsessed. Stick around, there's more coming. Hit subscribe if you want to see more. I'll see you in the next one.